Imagine trying to move something so heavy that every step feels impossible. Not a suitcase, not a car, a massive stone weighing several tons. You gather dozens of people. Everyone pulls with ropes until their hands burn. The stone shifts only a few centimeters before refusing to move any farther. Every ounce of effort disappears into the ground beneath it. Now imagine someone walks over and solves the problem without making the stone lighter, without adding more workers, and without changing the terrain. Instead, they change one invisible force: friction. That single insight eventually produced one of the most influential inventions in human history: the wheel. It looks so obvious today that it's easy to assume humans must have invented it almost immediately. They didn't. In fact, by the time the first true wheels appeared, humanity had already crossed oceans, mastered agriculture, built permanent settlements, fired pottery, woven textiles, and developed surprisingly sophisticated woodworking techniques. The wheel came astonishingly late, and that raises one of history's greatest engineering mysteries. Why? The answer reveals that the wheel wasn't a simple discovery at all. It was one of the most technically demanding inventions our ancestors ever achieved. Before wheels existed, moving heavy objects depended almost entirely on dragging. Builders placed large loads on wooden sledges and pulled them across the landscape using people or domesticated animals. For thousands of years, this remained the best available method. It worked well enough on snow. It worked reasonably well on wet grass. Sometimes animal fat or water was spread beneath the runners to reduce resistance. But no matter how clever the technique became, the same problem remained. Sliding creates enormous friction. Almost all the energy went into scraping wood against the ground instead of moving the cargo. Ancient farmers paid that price every harvest. Builders paid it whenever stone had to be transported. Entire civilizations accepted that moving something heavy simply required tremendous effort. No one questioned the rule until someone discovered a completely different way to fight friction. Instead of forcing one surface to slide across another, what if it could roll? That tiny change transforms the physics. Rolling resistance is dramatically smaller than sliding resistance. The load doesn't become lighter. The ground simply stops stealing most of your energy. That realization sounds obvious now, but recognizing the principle was only the beginning. Building a machine that could actually use it proved far more difficult. Most people imagine the invention of the wheel as someone carving a round piece of wood. In reality, a wooden circle alone accomplishes almost nothing. A log can roll downhill by itself, but the moment you try to place cargo on top of it, the idea falls apart. The log rolls away. The cargo stays behind. To transport anything, the rolling object must somehow remain connected to the load while still being free to rotate. That requirement creates an engineering problem far more complicated than the wheel itself: the axle. Every successful wheel depends on an almost perfect relationship between two pieces of wood. If the hole through the wheel is too tight, the wheel locks in place and refuses to turn. If it's too loose, the wheel shakes violently until the entire structure breaks apart. The difference between success and failure can be only a few millimeters. Today, machines produce perfectly round parts with astonishing precision. 5,000 years ago, There were no lathes, no precision drills, no steel bearings, only stone tools, wooden chisels, patience, and remarkable craftsmanship. Creating two wooden components that could rotate smoothly for years without destroying themselves demanded generations of accumulated knowledge. The invention wasn't born from a lucky accident. It emerged from centuries of improving woodworking, house construction, boat building, and joinery. Only after people became masters of shaping wood could the wheel finally become possible. The oldest surviving wheels tell us just how advanced these craftsmen had already become. Several remarkable discoveries across Europe reveal that wheeled vehicles appeared surprisingly quickly within only a few centuries. Archaeologists have uncovered preserved wooden wheels buried in ancient wetlands, protected for thousands of years by oxygen-free mud. Others discovered deep parallel ruts pressed into prehistoric ground, tracks left by wagons so long ago that later generations built monuments directly on top of them. Elsewhere, simple drawings scratched into pottery appear to depict four-wheeled carts already in everyday use. None of these discoveries likely represents the true first wheel. Instead, they reveal something even more fascinating. By the time the earliest evidence enters the archaeological record, wheeled transport already appears mature. People weren't experimenting anymore. They were using wagons confidently across large distances. That means the original invention almost certainly predates every surviving example. The first successful wheel may be forever lost. Even more intriguing is how rapidly the technology spread. Within only a relatively short period, evidence for wheeled vehicles appears across regions separated by hundreds and eventually thousands of kilometers. This pattern doesn't resemble multiple civilizations independently stumbling upon the same breakthrough. It looks more like one extraordinary idea racing through ancient trade routes. Once a community witnessed a functioning wagon carrying loads with unprecedented efficiency, the advantages would have been impossible to ignore. A village without wheels suddenly had every reason to learn from one that possessed them. Ideas can travel much faster than people, and useful ideas travel fastest of all. The wheel became one of humanity's earliest examples of technological diffusion, a breakthrough that reshaped entire societies long before written history could record its inventor. Yet one mystery still remained. If the benefits were so overwhelming, why hadn't anyone invented it thousands of years earlier? Humans had already mastered fire. They crossed open seas long before cities existed. They created bows capable of storing and releasing enormous amounts of energy. They domesticated plants and animals. They built impressive settlements. So what delayed the wheel? Surprisingly, the greatest obstacle wasn't intelligence. It wasn't imagination. And it certainly wasn't the ability to carve a circle. The real obstacle was that nature offered almost no inspiration. Every major human invention borrowed something from the natural world. Boats echoed floating logs. Shelters resembled nests and dens. Spears copied sharp branches and animal horns. But no animal uses a true wheel. No plant grows one. No large living organism moves with freely rotating axles. Evolution never discovered the design because living tissues require continuous blood vessels, nerves, and muscles. A freely spinning wheel would sever every one of those connections. Nature solved movement with legs. Humans solved it with rotation. That required an entirely new way of thinking. one that no living example could demonstrate. It wasn't imitation. It was imagination. And that may be why the wheel appeared so late. Not because it was simple, but because it demanded a completely original concept that had never existed anywhere on Earth before. Once the wheel finally existed, history began to accelerate. The earliest wagons were practical, but they were far from elegant. Their wheels were thick, solid wooden discs assembled from several carefully shaped planks, strong enough to survive rough ground, but incredibly heavy. A single wheel could weigh as much as a full-grown person, meaning a loaded cart forced its animals to pull not only the cargo, but the immense weight of the vehicle itself. Travel remained slow. Merchants advanced only a few kilometers each hour. Farmers still planned journeys around daylight. Transport had improved dramatically compared to dragging sledges, but no one would have mistaken these wagons for fast machines. For nearly 15 centuries, that was enough. Then someone looked at the wheel and asked a different question. What if most of the wood wasn't actually necessary? Instead of carving a massive solid disc, skilled craftsmen began removing everything except the parts responsible for carrying the load. The thick center remained, the outer rim stayed strong, and slender wooden spokes connected the two. The result transformed transportation. A spoked wheel could be dramatically lighter while remaining surprisingly strong. Less weight meant less energy wasted every time the wheel accelerated, climbed a hill, or crossed uneven ground. The invention didn't simply improve the wagon, it created an entirely new kind of vehicle. Around the Eurasian steppes, communities that already depended on horses discovered the perfect partnership. Fast animals, lightweight wheels, compact two-wheeled platforms. Together, they produced the chariot. For the first time in history, humans possessed a vehicle capable of moving across open ground at astonishing speed while carrying armed warriors. Imagine standing in a Bronze Age army. Your formation advances slowly with shields and spears. Then, far across the plain, dust begins rising. Within moments, horse-drawn chariots race toward your position faster than any human can run. Archers release arrows while still moving, circle around before defenders can react, and disappear before a counterattack is even possible. Speed itself had become a weapon. The battlefield would never look the same again. Across the ancient world, kingdoms quickly recognized the military advantage. Chariots spread from the great grasslands into powerful civilizations stretching across the Near East, Egypt, parts of Europe, and Asia. Maintaining them demanded skilled craftsmen, trained horses, experienced drivers, and highly disciplined warriors. Owning chariots became a symbol of wealth and political power. Technology had begun reshaping society itself, yet while the wheel revolutionized much of Eurasia, enormous civilizations elsewhere followed a completely different path. This is one of history's most surprising lessons. The absence of wheels did not mean the absence of intelligence. The Maya built magnificent cities. The Aztecs engineered one of the largest urban centers on Earth. The Inca constructed thousands of kilometers of mountain roads, linking an empire across some of the world's most difficult terrain. None relied on wheeled transport. At first glance, this seems impossible, but inventions do not exist in isolation. A wheel is only one component of a much larger system. Without suitable roads, its usefulness declines. Without skilled carpentry, it becomes unreliable. And perhaps most importantly, without powerful draft animals, pulling heavy wagons demands almost as much effort as carrying the load by hand. In the Americas, horses had disappeared thousands of years earlier. There were no oxen, no donkeys, no large animals capable of pulling carts over long distances. People certainly understood the principle. Archaeologists have uncovered small wheeled toys, proving that the concept itself was known. What they lacked wasn't the idea. They lacked the conditions that made the idea worthwhile. History reminds us that great inventions succeed only when the world around them is ready. Once wheels became reliable, humans discovered they could do far more than move cargo. Instead of allowing wheels to carry loads, why not let wheels produce work? Flowing rivers supplied the answer. Water wheels converted the constant movement of streams into mechanical energy, grinding grain day and night without exhausting a single worker. Wind later performed the same task through towering mills that transformed invisible air currents into useful power. For the first time, machines no longer depended entirely on muscles. Nature itself had become the engine. Then came another breakthrough. Add teeth around the edge of one wheel, mesh it with another, and suddenly motion can be transferred, slowed, accelerated, or redirected. The gear was born. It appears deceptively simple, yet nearly every complex machine ever built relies upon this principle. Mechanical clocks, printing presses, factory equipment, automobiles, industrial robots. Everyone traces its ancestry back to rotating wheels working together. Even modern engines depend on the same idea. Inside a car, pistons move up and down in straight lines. A crankshaft converts that linear motion into continuous rotation, allowing the engine to drive the wheels beneath the vehicle. The shapes have changed. The materials have changed. The underlying principle has not. Rotation became one of humanity's most powerful engineering languages. Perhaps the most remarkable aspect of the wheel is not its design. It's the fact that nothing like it existed before humans imagined it. Birds inspired flight. Fish inspired boats. Seeds inspired parachutes. Nature offered countless examples for inventors willing to observe carefully. But no animal evolved a freely rotating wheel connected by an axle. Evolution simply couldn't produce such a structure. Living tissues require uninterrupted blood vessels and nerves. A continuously spinning joint would destroy those connections. That left a challenge unlike almost any other in technological history. The wheel had no teacher, no natural blueprint. Someone conceived it entirely through abstract reasoning. It stands among humanity's clearest demonstrations that imagination can create solutions beyond anything evolution ever explored. Today, wheels are so ordinary that we rarely notice them. A bicycle rolling through a neighborhood, an airplane touching down after crossing an ocean, a hospital bed moving silently through a corridor, the gears inside a watch, the turbines inside a hydroelectric dam, the hard drives that once stored digital information, factory robots assembling smartphones, high-speed trains carrying hundreds of passengers. Even spacecraft rely on rotating components for guidance, stabilization, and power generation. The wheel is everywhere precisely because it stopped being just a wheel thousands of years ago. It became a universal method for controlling motion. And perhaps that's the greatest irony of all. Many people assume the wheel was among humanity's earliest inventions, In reality, it arrived astonishingly late. Our ancestors had already mastered fire, navigation, farming, construction, and countless other technologies before anyone successfully built a practical wheel and axle system, not because they lacked intelligence, but because the invention demanded an extraordinary combination of knowledge, craftsmanship, environment, and opportunity. It required skilled woodworkers capable of remarkable precision, communities transporting heavy goods over long distances, animals strong enough to pull wagons, terrain suitable for rolling instead of dragging. Only when every one of those conditions aligned did the wheel finally appear, and once it did, civilization changed direction forever. A simple circle of wood did not merely make transportation easier, it reshaped trade. It transformed warfare. It accelerated communication. It powered industry. It unlocked machines that would eventually build the modern world. Some inventions improve human life. Others redefine what civilization itself is capable of becoming. The wheel belongs firmly in the second category, not because it was the first great invention, but because it became the foundation beneath so many that followed. A circle turning around a shaft may look almost laughably simple, yet few ideas have carried humanity farther.